Let's go. You're listening to KZSU, Stanford University's FM radio station, broadcasting across the Yay area on 90.1 and across the world at kzsu.org.
Welcome to Brands, Beats, and Bytes, hosted by Daryl D.C. Cobbin and Larry Taman. Brands, Beats, and Bytes stands at the intersection of brand, tech, and culture. We bring you interesting people and insightful points of view on what's popping and not popping in marketing, tech, culture, and beyond. DC and Larry are fascinated with the stories and people behind some of the best marketing in the business. No matter how dope your product, if your marketing sucks, your company may suck too. They both serve as managing partners at marketing consultancy Brand Positioning Doctors, where they help companies large and small, tech and non-tech, build better marketers so they can build great brands.
What's happening, brand nerds? Good to be back at you with another podcast of Brands, Beats, and Bytes. But LT, I'm going to do something that is a first ever given the guests that we have in the virtual house tonight. And I'm going to call this a cold open for Brands, Beats, and Bytes. There's a personal connection I have with this next guest, but maybe not in the way that you brand nerds may be thinking. You've heard me quote my mother multiple times throughout the course of the years on this podcast. One of the things that you may not have heard me talk about regarding my mother, rest in peace, Gloria Cobbin is her name, is sacrifice. My mom, LT, you know this, was arrested multiple times in Detroit and Michigan, and maybe even other places because she protested. One of the times she was arrested in Detroit is when there was a merger of the two dominant newspapers. Now, I know brand nerds, you may not even know what a newspaper is, some of you, but you know, Larry, and our guest certainly knows as well. But there was the Detroit News and the Detroit Free Press, and they were merging, and so jobs were going to be lost. My mother protested in front of one of those buildings, maybe both of them, and was carted off to jail. What she was doing is she was sacrificing her freedom for what she thought was right. Brand nerds, we have a client now in our business at Brand Positioning Doctors, Tuskegee University. So the university is our client. But you all may have heard of a group called the Tuskegee Airmen. They are not our client. It's the university that's our client, not the Tuskegee Airmen. But the Tuskegee Airmen, go look it up. Red Tails is a movie that was done about the Tuskegee Airmen. They too said, we're going to sacrifice our very lives to protect this country. And what I've learned in my life, brand nerds, is that when I lose something, I learn more than when I gain something. And sometimes when I lose something, I gain more in return than what I lost. I'll finally say this and then I'll bring it home. When I went through my divorce, my former wife, brand nerds, you know, I've got 3 daughters. My youngest daughter, her name is Sydney. So as I was exiting the home, she was 5. And she was the one I was most concerned with regarding the relationship that I have had with her and what I would have with her moving forward. So I felt like I was losing something big with all of my girls, but particularly my youngest daughter. And now my youngest daughter and I, as are my middle and oldest daughter, that's Lauren and Haley respectively, but Sydney and I, we are now thick as thieves. And I thought I was sacrificing that relationship, that father-daughter relationship. Turns out I got something back. And so we have these stories of loss that actually become gains. And today's guest has a connection and a story himself regarding a loss that he and others said, there's something to learn from this loss that others ought to learn. And he's got a story to tell, LT. Shout Frank White. He's got a story to tell. So, brand nerds, thank you for your patience in allowing me to do that cold open. Larry, can you tell our brand nerds a little more about the human that we have on the podcast with us today.
A nice preface, DC. So we have Jared Schrieber in the house today. Welcome, Jared.
Thanks a lot, Larry and DC. Great to be here.
Okay. So Jared, now is the time where we have to alert our brand nerds and provide your auspicious background, which is an amazing background. So brand nerds, allow me to do this right. So I met Jared actually at a conference in the early 2010s when he was just starting his company, InfoScout. And at the time, I was super impressed with both Jared and his burgeoning company. We don't want to cheat the brand nerds here, so we have to provide our full intro for Jared by starting at the top. So Jared earned his undergrad degree in supply chain management from Arizona State University, where he was also on the varsity track team throwing the javelin, and he was ranked 5th nationally, which is really cool. This plays a part further into the bio here, brand nerds, so keep that in mind. So if that isn't busy enough, while in school at ASU, while being a varsity athlete, Jared also manages a Blockbuster video store. For you younger brand nerds, go Google that if you don't know it. And he also works, right, Jared? And he also works as part-time math teacher, football coach, and athletic director at the Redeemer School. So after graduating ASU, Jared puts his supply chain management degree to good use and goes to work for Intuit as manager of logistics planning, optimization, and decision support. After 5 excellent years at Intuit, Jared goes back to grad school and earns a master's from MIT, yes, that Massachusetts Institute of Technology in Boston in supply chain management and entrepreneurship. At this point, D and the brand nerds may be thinking, okay, well, what does Jared have to do with marketing? Trust me, we're getting there right now. After graduating MIT, Jared goes to work at Teradata as their go-to market lead for consumer goods. For those not in the know, Teradata is a connected multi-cloud data platform for enterprise analytics, solving data challenges from start to scale. This is where Jared really gets immersed in data and insights for brands. While at Teradata, remember, D, Jared was a varsity athlete, as I talked about before, at ASU, around the same time as a very accomplished all-around person who was ended up being a great friend of Jared's, and this athlete's name was Pat Tillman. For those young brand nerds, Pat Tillman was a walk-on football player at ASU who worked his way up to be Pac-10 Defensive Player of the Year and a very close friend, as I mentioned, of Jared. After being selected in the last round of the NFL draft by the Arizona Cardinals, Pat works his way into being an excellent starting NFL safety for the Cardinals. Right in the middle of his football prime, and soon after the 9/11 attacks, he'd been in the NFL 5 years, Pat enlisted in the Army. Yes, you heard me right. He enlisted in the Army and was tragically killed in 2004 from friendly fire in Afghanistan. The reason why we are telling you this is Pat's friend, our guest Jared, became a founding member of the board of directors for the Pat Tillman Foundation, which is dedicated to honoring the life of his amazing friend, where he was responsible for the development, and I mean Jared in this case, where Jared was responsible for the development of the foundation's initial scholarship programs. So eventually, Jared leaves Teradata and gets even more immersed in CPG marketing by joining Retail Solutions, also known as RSI, eventually becoming VP Product and Biz Dev. RSI is the world's leading technology company, enabling CPG manufacturers and retailers to optimize their market position and drive greater profitability from supply chain to shelf. So Jared, again, getting more entrenched into the marketing and CPG world. So, okay, brand nerds, so here is where Jared makes a really big move and leverages that entrepreneurship education from MIT, and he co-founds and becomes CEO of a company called InfoScout. Again, that's where Jared and I had met. InfoScout uses real purchase data from millions of actual purchases from a variety of channels to provide brands next generation consumer insights, really explaining why people buy in our very omni-channel world. So here are the few of amazing milestones Jared and his team achieve at InfoScout. They established the world's largest household purchase panel with more than 500,000 panelists. For those brand nerds in the market research world, that's a huge wow. Next one, captured nearly 1 in every 400 shopping and dining trips across America. They extract item level purchase data from over 500 million receipts since their inception. And they also donated more than $4 million to local schools through their Shopperoo mobile app. and they're ranked number 59 among the Inc. 5000 list of fastest growing companies in 2017, a 5,600%, by the way, in 3 years. They deliver fantastic returns for investors, 26x to angels, yes, 26x, and 14x in 4 years to the VCs. They're repeatedly recognized as a truly great place to work with 5-star reviews on Glassdoor. So amazing stuff. But check this out, D. In 2018, Jared engineers a merger with a complementary company called MarketTrack, and they changed the name to Numerator, and Jared joins the board of Numerator. In 2021, Jared works with the Numerator investors and Bain, the private equity owners of one of the largest global research companies there is, called Kantar, to secure the purchase of Numerator by Kantar and Bain for $1.5 billion. Yes, you heard me right, $1.5 billion. That's a great exit for Jared and him and his entire team and all the investors as well. So D, you can guess Jared is not sitting still. He and his family actually moved to Budapest, Hungary a number of years ago, where they currently reside. Before Jared left the San Francisco Bay, he starts and remains president of Revolution Robotics, where they envision a world where more kids participate in robotics than any other sport. Their aim is to excite and motivate youth to pursue STEM degrees and careers by making educational and competitive robotics accessible and enjoyable for all. Jared also is a very active angel investor and is currently on the board for Genomate Health, a digital health company developing AI solutions for personalized medicine. Al Gori, an SKU's level data insights company in Spain. Romani, helping build financial infrastructure for Africa's supply chains. And Nature Metrics, world-leading providers of nature data and intelligence. I am wrapping it up. This is the end here, folks. Lastly, dare I say, most relevant to our brand nerds is a book Jared just wrote called Breakout Brands, inspired by the #1 bestseller, Good to Great, which brand nerds tangentially, we at Brands, Beats, and Bytes are huge lovers of that book. Jared has gone a step further to explore the factors that distinguish breakout brands from those that lag behind. He studied 25,000 brands over 5 years by tracking the day-to-day purchasing decisions of more than 1 million consumers and analyzing the market forces that influence their behaviors. The result is a clear framework with a practical guide for growing brands, no matter their industry or size. Really looking forward to learning more about this great book, and I love how this is based on killer research that's just simply not found anywhere else. Without further ado, brand nerds, you know this is going to be special for this really cool human we have. This is going to be fun and informative. Welcome to Brands, Beats, and Bytes, Jared Schrieber.
Thanks, Larry. Thanks, DC.
Yes.
Look forward to chatting.
Yes. Larry, I feel like we might need some sound effects on these podcasts, like of applause after you do that kind of thing.
That would be good.
That would be nice. Jared, Larry has just become a savant at playing out the careers of the people that grace our podcast and the brand nerds. And it's all you. And dare I say, we've been fortunate to have many guests. You have an incredibly diverse background, incredibly diverse. And you appear to be able to go both vertically deep in areas and then horizontally across different areas. So I think that is super cool. But I want to get to a question in our Get Comfy section, Jared. And I'd like to connect what LT just outlined with my cold open regarding sacrifice. So Jared, few of us in the world, 7.2 billion of us or so, will find ourselves in a career that we dreamed of. If we happen to find ourselves in that dream career, to then find ourselves at the top of that dream career. And that is what Pat Tillman did. He goes from walk-on to Pac-10 Defensive Player of the Year to drafted by the NFL team in the same state as his college team. And then he goes from being drafted to becoming, like really a prominent player for this franchise.
Really was.
And then the dude enlists. So he's in the dream job. He's achieved one of the sort of dream levels within the dream job. And this dude says, yeah, I'm going to enlist to volunteer to put myself in harm's way for my country and leave this dream job. So as a co-founder and a board member of this Pat Tillman Foundation and being his friend, can you share with the brand nerds and Larry and I what was going through this dude's mind as he was making these decisions?
Wow. Look, I think we have to start by taking a real step back in terms of who Pat was as a person and what made him so distinctive. You know, you may have heard the story or not out there, but I think most of the articles about him fail to get at the real nature of who he was as a person that led him to do the amazing things that he did. Pat was incredibly driven, and he had an insatiable appetite for testing himself, for learning more, for accomplishing more, for doing more. He was never satisfied. So even at the top of his game, he was still trying to do more. We didn't find out, even his friends didn't know he was getting his master's degree while he was in the NFL.
Wow.
That was something that we found out later. He had bigger dreams and aspirations. You may have said that he was at the top in the NFL. I actually think his best years and his impact on this world were going to be another couple decades down the road. He was that kind of person, and so when you understand that about him, it helps put the decision to leave the NFL and move on to this next phase of life and joining the Army Rangers to go chase down bin Laden and seek justice and do so in a way that he felt was just. One of the things that really bothered him was that in American society, we all benefit from the freedoms, but the people who actually fight and die for those freedoms tend to come from more disadvantaged backgrounds.
Yeah.
Let's be frank. You know, it's not the upper middle class and upper class who are the enlisted who are out there getting shot and killed in war zones. And Pat just fundamentally didn't feel that was just and right. That he benefited as much as anyone else, and he should serve and contribute to that as much as anyone else. And that was a value to him. And he lived his values. He wore his values on his sleeve. You can, and so, you know, he couldn't be consistent and true to himself if he didn't take action on something that he felt was just and right.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
amazing human. I mean, I could tell you story after story. You know, just a kind of person that I am so fortunate to have met and seen in action. And I don't mean on the football field. I mean just in action in day-to-day interactions in life. And DC really struck a chord with me when you said sometimes you learn more through loss than maybe you could have or would have otherwise.
Yeah.
And I have to say that for me personally, the blessing in disguise of losing Pat, an amazing human who had so much more to contribute to this world, was the opportunity to reflect on what made him such an amazing and impressive human being, and trying to emulate little tidbits of that, you know, daily in my own life, or to just be able to reflect on that in a way that if you've never experienced it yourself, you just wouldn't have that benefit. And I'm not sure I ever would have done that if I hadn't lost him. So that really struck a chord with me. I'd never heard it put that way, but it really registered.
Wow. It's funny, Jared, I was about to ask you the follow-up. How does Pat live with you today? And you just told us, you know?
So many ways. I think, I will say this, one thing people don't know about Pat Tillman, he was the best active listener I've ever met in my life by a factor of 10. I have never met anyone ever in any capacity. And I know a lot of CEOs and a lot of executives and a lot of politicians and people, you know, very accomplished people. I've never met an active listener like Pat before. And when I say active listener, if you were in a conversation with him from the very first moment, his eyes were penetrating into your soul, not in a way that was uncomfortable, but in a way
Right.
that was so deeply engaging. And he would ask question after question after question in a way where it was, if it was coming from anyone else, you would think it would just be uncomfortable. But in fact, the way that he went about it and did it just allowed a conversation to naturally go deeper and deeper and deeper. And in the process, you know, if you're in a conversation with Pat, maybe within a minute, you would start learning more about yourself, your beliefs, your opinions, your views on matters than you even knew going into the conversation, because of his ability to draw it out. And he was so interested in other people, he never let the conversation be about himself. And so I would just say that's a side of Pat Tillman the world never knew, but it's one of the things that made him such an awesome human, and the kind of awesome human that we then look up to for the deeds that he did, as opposed to the way that he lived his life.
That is so deep, Jared. I'm so glad you shared that, because yeah, I've seen docs on him, I've read, but you know, that nothing has come out the way you just described it. And thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, Jared, thinking about Pat, rest in power, and what you said about his values, him being driven and him wanting to do and doing what is just. I contrast that to a category in the branding space. I'm going to make a connection to branding, and this is not to diminish what Pat did, but to further elevate what he did. We had a group of folks that described themselves or were described by others in the marketing category as influencers. Okay. That, as you know, Jared, and Brand Nerds, has now been modified to they are content creators, Jared. They're content creators. All right. And with these influencers now, content creators, they build their brands by what they say, what they show. That wasn't Pat. Nope. Pat, his brand was not about what he showed or said. His brand, and he wasn't even thinking about brand at that time, but I'm just talking about it looking back retrospectively. His brand was demonstrated in what he did,
action,
and how he lived. And so, dare I say, the best brands are not about what they say or what they show or the content that they create. The best brands are about actually doing something of substance that matters, where even if they don't say a word, there's a quote that you no doubt have heard, Jared and Larry, and I've heard as well, as that, where it goes something like this. I'll paraphrase. I can't hear what you are saying because what you are doing is speaking so loudly. Something like that. Brother Pat, you spoke loudly, and we not only heard it, a smaller group heard it while you were living. More of us have heard it and are hearing it now while you are living in a different way. So I just want to say that about Pat Tillman. All right, so we're gonna make a pivot now, but man, woo, powerful, Jared. All right, so Larry, if you could let the brand nerds know about specificity, please.
Sure, brand nerds here to talk to you again about specificity. So brand nerds, we know many of you are immersed in digital marketing or simply involved in it. Either way, if you want to optimize your digital marketing to maximize results, that's the key, brand nerds, we have the solution for you. In 2021, an interesting thing happened that forever changed the landscape of digital marketing. Apple's iOS update was structured to provide users the opportunity to opt out of ads, with more than 90% of users opting out. Android quickly followed suit with similar opt-out numbers. This situation created complete upheaval for the entire digital marketing infrastructure, with engagement rates falling precipitously. Now you know why you may be a young professional of Asian descent who speaks two languages that happen to be English and Mandarin, and you are playing your favorite game app on your phone, and all of a sudden you're being hit with an app ad in Spanish for the new Volkswagen electric car ID.4. That's serious money down the drain. Here's where specificity comes in to save the day. Specificity does not track or know users' personal data, such as name, social security number, etc. Specificity uses device ID numbers similar to a VIN number on a car, so they track what users are doing without knowing their personally identifiable information, working in harmony with the post-privacy update. Now with Specificity, both the consumer and the advertiser are happy, since consumers see digital ads that are relevant for them and advertisers serve ads to people that are receptive to the message. Let's give a real life example. If Jeff Shirley's old brand Lunchables wanted to use Specificity, they can serve ads to only parents, but not just any parent. They can dial into serving ads to only working parents of children 6 to 12. Maybe they want to even go further. They might want to just dial in to serve ads to any parents who are vegetarian, to not serve ads to parents who are vegetarians or other similar dietary restrictions who would not be prone to buy Lunchables. Bottom line is, this would enable Lunchables to be incredibly efficient in serving their message only to those who would be most receptive, and doing it in a way that completely respects said consumer's privacy, since they do not know or learn any personal information about these people. The bottom line is, in 2023, we believe no one else out there can deliver better digital marketing results than Specificity. We have introduced Specificity to many clients, and everyone is super happy, since each client has been more successful with their digital marketing efforts than they were before. For more information on Specificity, please visit their website at specificityinc.com. Again, specificityinc.com. That's specificityin.com. Their website is also on our show notes. If you want to improve your digital marketing results, go check them out.
Thanks, LT. Jared, we kind of feel like we're growing up as a podcast to have a sponsor and partner like Specificity. And Larry, thank you very much for the beautiful read. We are now on to what we call 5 questions, brand nerds. You know what it is. I ask a question, Larry asks a question. We go back and forth until we arrive at the number 5. All right, Jared, you've written a book about branding. You've studied brands. You've built brands. You have worked in partnership with brands over a number of years. But we'd like to take you back to the first branding experience that you had personally. First one you had personally that lit your fire, blew your mind, flipped your wig. I love this brand. I love this experience. I can't get enough of it. What was that for you, Jared?
Well, I think for me, it had to be the 1992 Reebok campaign for Dan and Dave. If you remember the decathletes?
Yes,
and Dave
Totally
yes.
remember.
And Reebok was emerging as a challenger brand to Nike that was kind of the dominant player in the space, and Reebok was the upstart challenger. And this was a major go-to campaign for them to raise their profile and awareness the industry. And they featured 2 decathletes who were vying for the gold medal at the Barcelona Summer Olympics that summer, and the whole lead up to it. And they did a whole series of campaigns. And I had just competed in my first decathlon back then, so I ended up becoming a decathlete before focusing on javelin. And so, boy, did that hit home and register with me in a very personal way. But one of the amazing things about it, those ads featured Dan and Dave when they were young, just being kids and boys, but talked about their accomplishments as adults. And somehow it bridged this gap between where I was and had been and what I was hoping for and what I wanted to be in some way that really registered with me personally and aspirationally. And I admired the heck out of those guys at the time as an aspiring decathlete. And so for me, all of a sudden, Reebok was just like, top of mind. I was so excited about the products and the brand. And when I got to college and the track team was sponsored by Reebok, and I got, as a decathlete, you've got a whole bag full of shoes. You've got your sprinting spikes, you've got your high jump shoes, your javelin shoes, your throwing shoes, your distance running shoes. You've got all these different shoes, and they were all Reebok, and they were air pump and the new technology. And I just remember being so excited and wearing the track suits, with the Reebok logo with pride. And I attribute it all back to that Dan and Dave campaign.
Wow. That is so cool. D, what are you thinking?
I remember the campaign, Jared and LT. I do remember the campaign. And while I was not a track person, I was into it because of all of the different things that both Dan and Dave did. But I have an additional memory that Jared, you will know better than I. I seem to recall that the hype leading up to it did not quite materialize in the competition during the Olympics itself. I don't remember which one of these gentlemen ended up not really being at the top, but I went into it thinking one of the two of them was going to get the gold medal, and that was not the case.
It was a bit of a wah-wah. Do you want to tell Jared, the brand nerds, what happened?
Sure. So at the one of the crazy things about being a track and field athlete for America is you have to finish in the top 3 at the national championships and achieve certain level in order to make it to the Olympics, even if you're like the reigning world champion. But like, it doesn't matter. You have to finish at the top 3 at the national championships. And the decathlon, that means you have to finish every event quite successfully. And Dan O'Brien struggled in the pole vault and got a no height, which I can tell you, pole vault is tricky. If your timing and steps aren't perfectly on, anything can go wrong. And that's what happened to Dan. And he no heighted in the pole vault, and despite doing incredibly well in all the other events, he was not able to complete and make it to the Olympics. And he was reigning world champion. And so it never came to fruition that Dan and Dave got to compete for the gold medal at Barcelona.
Yeah, which Reebok, everybody thought, to Jared's point, that it wasn't a question of if they were going to make the Olympics, because they were the 2 best in the world.
By far, they were the 2 best in the world. Yeah.
So it unfortunately and unfortunately for Reebok, Dan ended up winning the decathlon gold medal, but in 1996.
Yeah. Right. A little bit later. Yeah. So anyway, just amazing campaign. Of course, they tried to recover. They had Dan cheering on Dave at the Olympics to kind of close out the campaign, but maybe it didn't finish with the same kind of bang that they had hoped for.
That's a great story. But what I find really relevant, D, is that here's somebody who is Jared, who is an accomplished up and coming track athlete. And that if it didn't hit with Jared, it wasn't going to hit with everyone else. So Reebok has been accused a lot of times of not being genuine, right? But they were really genuine and authentic with that campaign, and it really worked in that sense. So that's cool.
Yeah, and actually it fits with a lot of the research I've done over the many years of like how breakout brands really succeed. And one of the ways they do it is appealing to the heaviest buyers of a given product category. So if you think about sports apparel, who is buying more sports apparel and more demanding of what they expect out of sports apparel, their shoes, their equipment, and other things, than an athlete who's training 6 hours a day? I mean, seriously. And so the same holds true across every category, every type of brand. The heaviest category buyers dictate the direction, and if you can't appeal to them as a brand, you cannot have breakout success. You cannot hold on to a number 1 or number 2 position in your category if you can't hold on to the heaviest category buyers. And some of that is through what you do in messaging communications and your authenticity as a brand, and some of that is what you do in terms of delivering a product experience that really delivers.
Ooh, Jared's hitting. You're preaching to the choir here, Jared. It's a big.
We need
part
more of that choir actually as practitioners in the world.
Yeah, no, great point. But that's a big part of what we talk about all the time. So thank you for voicing that. D, should we go to the next question?
We should. All right, Larry, let's hit question 2.
Let's do it. So Jared, who has had or is having the most influence on your career?
Well, not to go back to Pat Tillman, but quite frankly, truly, Pat Tillman has had the most influence on my career, and quite frankly, after his death, not before. So I found out Pat was killed on my last day of classes at MIT for graduate school. I'd already had 5 years of my work career before that. Wow. And let's just say I probably wasn't the nicest guy to work with. I was probably more of an arrogant prick who thought by showing everybody how smart he was, even if that made other people not feel so great, that was the way to be successful and do well in business. And thinking about how Pat lived his life and what made him amazing as a person, I think helped me hopefully tame down just a little bit and become more human in my interactions with others, and learn how to work well with others, even when you have disagreements, even through any kind of circumstance, by asking questions, by understanding their perspective more, by just diving deeper with them, treating people as you would want to be treated. It sounds so cliche, but the basics of, let's call it Carnegie, and how to win friends and influence people, and just practicing those on a daily basis as best as you can, I think has had more of an impact on my career than anything. And I do think having lost Pat helped me to learn that lesson much faster than I might have otherwise done so.
That's deep, D.
Yeah, Larry, whenever someone mentions Dale Carnegie and then quotes the title of one of Dale Carnegie's many books, in this case, Jared said, How to Win Friends and Influence People, you got me at hello. Okay,
Me too.
you got me at hello. So brand nerds, for those of you all who do not know Dale Carnegie and or have not heard of this book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, do check it out, because there's a belief that I have, and it is, Jared, there's really nothing new under the sun. It's all been said, it's all been done, explored, researched before. We just have to find it. But I think it's pretty, it's profound, one, that the passing of Pat had that impact on you, but also Jared and Larry, you know this, Larry, I don't believe that there are coincidences in life. I think everything has a divine order and timing. And I think I heard you say, on the last day of my classes, not a week before while you were trying to get yourself together, not a week later, on the very last day. And perhaps what Pat understood is that for me to impact my brother Jared, this is the moment. This is the moment to do it right now, because he is finishing one thing called his graduate degree in all its grandeur at MIT, and he's about to go to something else. And before he takes his prickdom, proudly prickdom with him to the rest of his life, I need to talk to my brother. I need to talk to him. So no disrespect, Jared, no disrespect.
I don't mind it. I probably deserve being called a prick or carrying prickdom at times, so it's okay. Earned, but yeah, I think the amazing thing with Pat, just one last thing on that, is he had that kind of impact on dozens and dozens of people as well. That's been one of the amazing things, getting to know people who either had one small interaction with Pat or were very close friends with him. The kind of impact he had from those direct interactions was really incredible.
Well, dude. D, should we go to the next question?
Let's do it. All right, Jared, as Larry outlined in the walk through your career, you've done a lot of stuff. You've had a lot of successes, a lot of wins. You have found yourself in rarefied air, and you would not be there but for the things that you have done right. You've done a lot of things right. But we also know you've done some things wrong, Jared. And so we'd like you to pick what we call an F up, a juicy one, based on you. You thought it wrong. You thunk it wrong, Jared. You made an F up, and then you learned something from it. What's that big F up? And then what did you learn from it?
I think my biggest F up, and it could have turned out a whole lot worse than it did if it weren't for some amazing people in my life who prevented it from getting much further, was in my career at Retail Solutions. I'd been there 5-ish years, working my ass off, growing that business. I was not one of the founders. I was one of the first outside executives they brought in to help grow it from I think we went 0 to 60 million in about 5-6 years there. So incredible rocket ship growth.
Mhm.
But I felt the need to leave and move on. But it was a need to leave as opposed to a desire for something that I was pursuing.
Ah,
What was driving me was the need to leave, as opposed to a goal ahead. It wasn't a goal ahead. In general, yes, I wanted to be an entrepreneur, but I started working on an idea for a startup. I called it Unique, and it was to be a platform where you could personalize anything.
mhm.
So, there's like Zazzle and others out there that have products that you could personalize, but
Mhm.
they carried the inventory. They had specific sets of products. But what if you had a platform a la on Amazon where you could have any seller out there, but the platform is designed to support and allow really simple and easy personalization in any way you wanted. Like,
Mhm.
so not just custom shirts and mugs, but custom anything, including the genesis of it was customizing a song for somebody as a gift. So
Wow.
there's songs that have people's names in them, but you could easily change that name, have it fit right into the song, and it could be for that person on their birthday or other
Oh,
kind
wow,
of thing.
okay.
So hey, I just got enamored by the idea. I had none of the right skills or experience to be pursuing this, and I was just determined to go do it, not because that's what I really wanted to do and it was the right fit for me and the next step in my career and development. It was because I was just trying to get away from what I was doing. And a couple things happened. One is my wife, started to poke and intervene a little bit. She's super supportive, and she was incredibly supportive when I later started InfoScout. She wasn't afraid of me leaving to become an entrepreneur. She could just tell, like, Jared, what do you bring to this? Like, what's your expertise in this domain? Where did this come from? What's going on? That didn't exist with Unique, whereas later with InfoScout it did, and she was 100% supportive at that time. But this one, she was really challenging me in a very healthy way. And two, the founders of Retail Solutions, to their credit, just looked to understand a little bit what was going on and encouraged me. Said, look, pursue it nights and weekends. Don't leave. Pursue it nights and weekends. Get it further. Validate this. And if you still want to do it, then you can go. But no need to quit your day job in the meantime. And thank goodness they said that, because I was able to work through some of the challenges I was facing in my work at that time, and realized this is not me. This is not the right startup for me. I bring nothing to the table here of kind of unique value, and I wasn't ready for it yet. And so it prevented me from making a much bigger mistake. I lost some money getting it going, but it could have been so much worse. There's probably nothing worse than running a failed startup. From what I've heard from others, I'm very fortunate I haven't gone very far down that road. But there's also nothing like the euphoria associated with leading a startup that's really taking off as well. And I'm fortunate that I didn't go down that road too far and still had the opportunity to pursue what was the right path later. But the key message is, don't run away from things, run towards things. And that was my biggest learning. I was running away from something versus really running towards something. And if you have any doubts in your mind as to what you're doing, it's probably a sign that you're running away from something as opposed to running towards something. Because if you're really running towards something, there's no doubt in your mind that that's what's right and that's what's next.
Jared, if you are comfortable and you can recall, what were you running away from?
It's a good question in terms of where I was at the time. I think part of it was I was living on the road, mostly away from my family at the time. I wasn't seeing my wife and kids. It's what was needed from me in that role at the time. I had committed to the board of directors, the investors and founders, that if they would fund a acquisition that I thought would change the direction of the company, it's actually what resulted in the company becoming Retail Solutions, that I would move out and run it and integrate it. And that was the deal. And I was upholding that deal, but it wasn't good for me personally or for my family. And I needed out of that situation that I had gotten myself into.
Interesting.
Thank you. Larry, any reflections on Jared's answer before we go to the next question?
I think Jared summed it up great. I think we can go to the next question.
Cool.
All right. So Jared, you're such a great person to ask this question to. So regarding technology and marketing, because of your unique vantage point, since you did successfully co-found a tech company that's focused on marketers, right? And you continue to be involved with tech-related companies. Can you tell us where you think marketers should lean in or best leverage tech, or areas that they should be leery?
Oof. Wow. So, look, I'm sure you're probably going to get a lot of answers around AI these days, and I understand why. It's all the hype, it's all the rage.
Right.
If I could take a step back, when I founded InfoScout started off by creating mobile apps that convince consumers to take pictures of their everyday shopping receipts, no matter where they shopped or what they bought. And the whole idea was, if we could make it that simple and we could appify and gamify the experience, then we could get a lot more people to do it a lot more consistently and create much richer data set than had ever existed in the world.
Almost like census taking is what
exactly. But doing it at massive scale, making it super simple and easy so that you get, tons of people doing it. And this was a game changer for the industry, because the largest panel at the time was like 60,000 people, and the people reported a shopping trip a week. And all of a sudden we've got 500,000 people and they're reporting 7 shopping trips a week. That's a big difference. And it could not have happened without smartphones. So what happened was smartphones allowed that to be possible, and leveraging the fullness of that technology to be able to do this. It could not have happened 1 year before.
Right.
We caught the wave at just the right time. And I say that because I do believe that generative AI is another one of these waves that is real. This is not the metaverse. This is not crypto. This is not whatever. And the reason you can tell is how much time people spend doing the given activity and how often they come back to it and keep doing it over and over again. And as I talk to people in terms of how they're using ChatGPT, or they're using Runway, or they're using any of these other tools, there's a lot of repeat usage. There's a lot of new use cases emerging. There's a lot going on. And I believe this is real in the same way that smartphone adoption and the creation of new apps was real back in 2010, 2011. Like this is real. This is happening. It doesn't mean that every hot AI startup is going to deliver on a value proposition and be successful. Not at all. So then the question is, if I believe that to be true, that we're on like a smartphone-ish, maybe even bigger revolution, like an internet.com type revolution here. If you think about the .com boom and bust, right? 99% of the .com companies back in the late 90s went bust. Right. The 1% that made it, the Amazons and others of the world, totally fundamentally changed the world, quite frankly, in a number of ways. I do believe the same is true of AI. So where might we find some of the opportunities and use cases that are really going to impact marketing and branding? I think one is fundamentally, we are teaching AIs how to think and make decisions like humans. And as a result, we are going to learn a whole lot more about how humans actually make decisions. Okay, so how does satisficing actually work, or is that even the right term anymore, when a consumer is quickly trying to buy 10 different items at a grocery store off their list, and they have to pick individual products for each of the categories on their list? Like, what is happening inside their mind, and how are they going about making those choices on the go? I think that AI models are going to teach us about how real people, how humans actually go about making decisions, and that our learnings from how people make decisions will fundamentally change how we go about doing things like packaging, labeling, claims, merchandising. Those are going to come first. And then later, I think we're going to get into messaging and marketing communications and advertising and other things being impacted as well. And so I do think that our understanding of human decision making is going to fundamentally change as a result of developments in AI.
Ooh, is that deep? machine learning helping us grasp better how consumers or people just think is really deep, and as you described it so incredibly well, so cogently, makes total sense to me.
I think the other area, if I could, I think marketers in general, especially in consumer goods industry, have somehow removed themselves or allowed themselves to be removed from product and product management and determining what are the products that need to be brought to market. If you go back to the 1980s, 1990s, the role of marketing in defining what are the products and features that we're going to bring to market and how we're going to package them, marketing played a prime role in that. Somehow marketing is not in that seat anymore, and it's so critical and so important. And so what I would say is to the marketers out there, you've got to reinsert yourself in the space. And one of the ways that you could do it is through AI. How? Well, think about innovations and how they're going to come about and how they've historically come about. New flavors, new extensions, merging two brand concepts or two category concepts together into a unified one. Like, where are some of the creative ideas going to come from, and how will they be generated? Through some really good AI prompting. Can come up with an amazing set of ideas super rapidly that can also be tested super rapidly in terms of, does this have any interest or appeal? And I offer actually some suggestions on how to go about doing that at the end of my book. But I fundamentally believe the whole process of innovation will fundamentally change as a result of generative AI, helping come up with very, very creative ideas for new product concepts or line extensions or flavors or packaging or other kinds of things. And then after coming up with them, help create ways to quickly test or digitally prototype those in a way that they can be tested to see what actually has enough sticking power to be worth actually working on as a real product.
Well, that is so deep, and you described that so well. There's a couple key points I want to hit as follow-up. One, marketers out there, as Jared said, and we've been lamenting this and also talking about this a lot, Jared, because honestly, we come from the Coca-Cola world, and at Coca-Cola, I don't think it's as much as it was back in the day when we were there, but when we were there, everyone knew marketing ruled everything. So that means the definition of marketing is from the time of awareness through purchase. So that means that encompasses customer service. That encompasses what we call, Jared, the brand activation wheel. Every touch point that brand has with consumers, marketing should be the folks who are leading that, controlling that. And you're right, it's been taken away. And a lot of tech companies do this because they come from a product-oriented focus, not a consumer one. Right. So I think that's the reason why, but it's not a good reason. And then a lot of technologies are running in the company, so they don't really understand marketing. So I'm so glad you come at this from a much different place than we do. But what you just said is so deep and so important. And then for AI to then use AI as the tool to, if leaning in marketers, use AI to take leadership control again. That's what Jared's saying, right, Jared? Am I?
Yeah.
Right.
Come back to the table. Be the one presenting the ideas, the path forward, some of the new concepts. Take some responsibility for the products, the innovations, the packaging, the labeling that get put forward, as opposed to saying, okay, once you guys come up with the product, we'll figure out a way to raise awareness for it and drive consideration. Bullshit. Like that's gotta, the role of marketers has to start way earlier in that process.
Jared, I totally agree. And I'll say not just responsibility, leadership.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. You know, I did a ton of research for this book, and I hadn't really read Kotler and Akers much before. And you know, I read several of their books in the process, and I went, man, like they had it. They had some of this stuff right. It's old, it's fundamental. There are a lot of truths in here, but they defined the role of a marketer as so much broader than what it seems to be in practice today.
So
and
true.
I think marketers out there need to think of their role more broadly than maybe how it's currently defined.
We violently agree. D, you want to hit anything before the next question?
I do. Jared Larry said regarding AI, how do humans think? And what is happening inside the brain regarding decisions and how they're made? Then you'll get further down the line on how you communicate and connect. But these are two things that are critical. I was on a Zoom yesterday, and I heard a lady say, "I wrote this thing up with my partner, GPT." And I'm hearing that more and more, Larry, and Jerry, about this AI being thought of as a partner. And Jared, something that I've done now for a long time, like maybe 20 years now, is I was musing one day thinking about how computers were able to do things at a certain amount of speed, the data that they were able to crunch and all that. And I said to myself, Jared, well, hold on now. If the computers can do that, and the computers were made by a human with a brain, and the human brain can do things the computer cannot, why don't I start to use my brain like a computer? So what I started doing, Jared, is if I had something I needed to figure out, rather than go sit down and go, okay, let's figure this thing out, I would say, okay, brain, this is the thing that I need to figure out. This is what I know. I'm going to check back in with you at a particular time and day. And then I would sit down at that time and day and go, okay, brain, give it up. Jared, without fail, it would just come out.
Fantastic.
It would just come out. And so my brain, thank you. My brain, little did I know, was my own form of my AI partner, my own AI partner. So now there's this other thing out here called GPT. Sure. But the other thing that you said here is about marketing is in being removed from the product development, the innovation, and then marketers leveraging AI to get to ideas more rapidly, to get to testing more rapidly, and the like. I think that what you have, Jared, that many marketers don't have is you are not waiting for permission.
Yep.
Okay, you're not waiting for me. You're saying, "Ooh, I have the ability to create things that are going to be marketed. I'm going to use whatever are the tools available to do that." I think what's happened with marketers is that they've become order takers.
Yes.
Yep. They begin, okay, here, marketer, we're going to come to you when we're done. And when we're done with the whole thing, I want you to give me a fancy tagline, give me a logo, tell me where maybe I should be talking to people. Give me something snappy. Give me something snappy. That's what's happening, I think, with our profession now. Sure. We are being co-opted and reduced. That's my connection.
That's our own fault, D.
It's our own fault, yes.
It's our own fault. And again, I think back to my career, and, we didn't know it when we were Coca-Cola, Jared, but, we did know that we were in a special place at a special time.
Yeah,
we did know that. But we didn't know that the rest of the world didn't act the same way. And what I mean by that is the financial people, the salespeople, every function of Coca-Cola knew it all started and ended with marketing. And so when you go into another company, you just assume it that way. And then you learn very quickly, oh, this is not that way. And unless that comes from the very top, it is very hard to assert yourself. Yeah. But we need to challenge marketers. Go take that control and make somebody stop you.
It's funny. I had a close friend and colleague who worked for Campbell Soup for a number of years, and he said, the company is a bank that happens to sell food in aluminum cans.
Right.
That just the whole mindset and mentality was different. I don't know if that's true or not, but I think it hits the point of there are real differences across companies in terms
Yep.
of
Yeah.
the role of marketing, and obviously Coke is on one end of that spectrum.
Yeah.
And there's a reason it's one of the greatest brands in the world, and others are not. And if I could just take a step back, I think
Yes.
there's a repositioning of mindset that marketers need to make, and also in terms of how they communicate, how they think of their role, and how they communicate what their role is to others. Marketers should know, their job is to know what the market wants. Okay.
Ah, that's
Okay.
good.
And a marketer cannot deliver on what the market wants if they cannot influence what the product is that the company sells.
Great point.
Because otherwise, all they're doing is putting lipstick on a pig. And if you want to be a marketer whose sole job is to put lipstick on a pig, go for it. But that's just going to relegate marketing further and further away from what's really important. Marketers need to take responsibility for making sure the company is delivering, not just talking about, not just selling in a communication standpoint, but actually delivering what the market wants.
I'm going to add this to Jared's poignant point and then move to the next question. So, one, marketers, to what Jared just said, need to be a part on the part of the company saying, this is what the market wants. So this puts you in an immediate position of power because it's consumer based. My addition, Jared and Larry, is marketers sometimes, by virtue of data, need to deliver what the market needs,
Sure.
but may not recognize yet that they need it.
100%.
Question.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Not a clarification, Jared. In addition, it's both of them, both and.
Yes.
Both and. All right. Final question on 5. That was dope, Jared. What are you most proud of?
Oh boy, I don't have a great answer to that. I am super proud that I stepped back as CEO before it was too late to spend time with my kids before they'd grown up, because I had put so much into my work career as they were growing up, and I made the decision to step out and be with them over the last many years while they could still be at home. And now I've got a couple in college and one finishing up high school. I'm so glad I did that. I have to say, the process of writing the book, I love the research. The actual writing nearly killed me. I guess what I'm proud of is just sticking with it through thick and thin, getting feedback, getting help to make it what I think actually turned out to be a very readable book. But most importantly, the fact that it ever got to be a book. You may have heard the process of being an author is lonely and challenging, and it's probably not made for me by my nature, but getting this sucker across the finish line is something I'm actually quite proud of. It's something I'd always wanted to do, was to write a book someday, and now I've done it. Feels great.
I can't wait to read it, Jared. And I love the title. Oh, we love.
Oh yeah, I love it too.
Such a great title. It really is.
By the way, that wasn't that. So this is the funny thing. It wasn't my title, right? I had my own idea of what it was going to be called. I had my own vision for the cover, and I just asked questions, got feedback, tried to listen, and other people ended up having better ideas. And I'm so glad, I had input from others, and I love the title too. I just didn't come up with it.
Right.
And I love the cover too, and I didn't come up with it.
Right.
It wasn't my
What was
concept.
the title before Breakout Brands? What was your title?
Oh, well, at first it was a little bit of a dig on one of the most popular books in our industry that I think should be called Heresy, which is How Brands Grow. It was going to be How Brands Really Grow. That was the working title.
Okay. Spicy, Jared, spicy.
Yeah, that fired me up. That kept me going. And then I had another title after that, the Brand Growth Flywheel, which is a primary concept that emerges in the course of the book and the research. But I think Breakout Brands, why some brands take off and others don't, just so much better. And my idea for the cover was like these iconic illustrations of how the Brand Growth Flywheel works. everything from you buy the product, you consume it, so you're feeling good. You know, it really stimulates your brain and creates new mental associations, a la brand equity. And then you're going to be more attracted to that in the future. The eyeballs, you know, like I had this vision for it, and nothing was looking good. And I worked with a designer, and she just had a totally different idea and way better. I had to come up with.
That's awesome. That's
Thank you. Thank you very much, Jared.
Pleasure.
All right, D, we ready to hit what's popping?
Let's do it, Larry.
Right, Jared. We love this segment. What's popping? This is our chance to shout out, shout down, or simply air something happening in and around marketing today that we think is good fodder for discussion. And your book is chock full. We know just in the conversations we had with you, chock full of great conversation points. And I think there's one in particular that you thought would be really good to share. Do you want to introduce that?
Sure. So as I just alluded to, my working title of the book was How Brands Really Grow, a play on the now famous book in our industry, How Brands Grow by Byron Sharp and the Ehrenberg Bass Institute, which has become almost the Bible of our industry over the last decade. And I think it puts forward a couple of really false premises and guides for marketers that are leading the whole industry astray. And our long-term study of brand growth, I think demonstrates that. And there's two things I want to call out. One is that they say that, you know what, differentiation doesn't matter. It's fleeting. It doesn't matter. It's all about brand distinctiveness. That's how you win is distinctive brand assets. Stop wasting time on differentiation. What we found is that if you want year-over-year consecutive growth in a meaningful way, you must have differentiation. In fact, of all the drivers of that touch on anything kind of related to brand equity, uniqueness and innovation in particular were the single biggest differentiating factors for the breakout brands versus those that weren't. When we looked at brands that had been declining but turned around and all of a sudden took off on growth, those were brands that created differentiated products in the market and really marketed the heck out of these new, innovative, differentiated products as opposed to went with distinctive branding. A great example is Colgate. Okay, Colgate didn't suddenly change the distinctiveness of their brand from 2021 to 2022. Mm-hmm. No, they innovated with Renew and another type of toothpaste that focused on gums. Like, they had real innovations, and they advertised the heck out of those innovations, and it drove the entire brand, not just those innovative products, but the whole brand got a lift as a result. And we saw that over and over. So that's one. Two is the false idea that somehow How Brands Grow has confused the idea that because growing brands increase their number of light buyers, that if you go out and try and capture more light buyers, you will grow your brand. So yes, it's true that any growing brand, whether it's growing a little bit or a lot, is going to have more and more light buyers. That's true. Okay, yeah. You're just going to reach more buyers. You're going to have more of them. But that is not what differentiates the really growing brands from the slightly growing brands or the declining brands. You know what really differentiates them? How well is your brand doing among heavy category buyers? Mm-hmm. Are you retaining and even growing your base of heavy category buyers, the most discerning buyers of the category, who spend 7 times more than the median, on the category? Because if you're not winning them, you're not going to have a winning brand. So the biggest difference between winning and losing brands is how they perform among the top third of heaviest category buyers. That is the differentiating factor in brand growth. And so I just have to call out as a false direction this idea that to grow a brand, you have to reach more light category buyers. Therefore, you should not do any targeting in your advertising and marketing. It should all be about mass channels and mass reach, regardless of whether or not your product is relevant to the people that you're advertising it to. Bullshit.
Woo. I love this.
Oh, I'm loving this.
I love this. I love this. Larry, I see you smiling, brother. I know you got something on this.
I do. Jared, we come up against this all the time, and we have 10 commandments of for our consulting practice. We have 10 commandments of great brands, and the first one is thou shalt sacrifice. And what that means is you cannot be all things to all people. Right?
That's exactly right.
And our team, I'm going to we don't want to speak freely about, our current clients, so we can talk freely about things that we've worked on in a corporate setting. And the reason why Powerade became a challenger brand to Gatorade, the day I walked in, Gatorade had a 97.2 share. And when I walked into our office, and I don't want to take credit, as our team, when I left 2 years later, we were in the 40s in some key markets. And so the reason why we had that success, and they've screwed up since, and I've been very vocal about this, is we called the brand lover, and that's the foundation to, quite frankly, the business that we do at Brand Positioning Doctors is a key component of that. Our brand lover, we help identify for all of our clients. For Powerade, it was the captain of the football, baseball, and basketball team in high school. So everything we did, Jared, to new flavors that we came out with Mountain Blast, that guy helped engineer everything. So all of our marketing was dedicated toward that guy. If I was with Powerade today, it would be the captain of the basketball team that I would do. And I would even take it even more sacrifice. So the point is that I love the fact that your research actually validates what we know already to be true, that we come at it from a completely different place. And so, you end up getting those, as you put it, those lighter users, because they're taking cues from the heavy users.
Light users don't influence heavy users. Heavy users influence light users. Come on now. Like, this is absurd. What are we talking about? So, by the way, the practice you just described of defining this aspirational or primary core influential consumer and really addressing their needs and interests is similar to the approach that Procter & Gamble takes, and many other companies don't. Procter & Gamble had 7 of the 56 winning brands in my study.
Wow.
The next,
wow.
So Unilever had 2. One other company had 2. Nobody else had more than 2. Procter & Gamble had 7.
Wow.
It's not just because they're a house of brands and they have a ton of brands. A lot of other house of brands companies didn't have any breakout brands.
Yes.
Procter & Gamble is doing something fundamentally different and right. And what you just talked about, Larry, from your experience with Powerade, is part of that secret sauce that they have at Procter & Gamble.
Absolutely.
It's not an accident for their success. And now I can't wait to hear DC talk.
I want to talk about 2 categories: consumption profile and strategy. Let me start with consumption profile. Brand nerds, to Jared's point, if your brand is focused on light users, not heavy users, then what you are doing is what we call renting share. Renting.
Right.
You don't own anything, because those light users, at the moment some other brand goes on deal, starts talking to them really nice, they're gonna hop.
Yep.
And why are they going to hop? Because they're light users, and they will lightly use you and lightly use someone else. And then when they decide to heavily use another brand, they ain't using you. So don't rent share and get happy about it. So that's consumption profile. Now let me go to strategy. I'm gonna draw a connection here between you, Jared, and someone else. His name is, which I may not pronounce right, Dr. Amar Gopal Bose. He is an MIT alum. He was a PhD from MIT. He is also the entrepreneur behind the brand Bose, And he's passed, rest in power. Bose, sonically, Jared, was distinctive. They were distinctive sonically. the sound, the quality of the sound, all of the things having to do with the engineering behind the quality of the sonics of Bose. There's another brand out there called Beats. Jimmy Iovine and Dr. Dre, they did not attend MIT, as you know, Jared. They did not attend, but they differentiated. They differentiated and began to eat the lunch of Bose. Bose fell on the sword. They thought if we continue to be distinctive sonically and do more and more and more to be distinctive, we can hold off this brand that is different than ours. They could not. They could not. So brand nerds, if you're choosing between a distinction, which sometimes is relegated to a product distinction, and you're dealing with a differentiation of a brand, I'm going to give you this in technical terms on where you happen to be. If you're on the distinctive side, problemo. Okay, so that's my takeaway. Violently agree with you, Jared. Violently agree with you.
And also, I want to, DC, what you just said, I want to make sure brand nerds understand. A lot of times people use product and brand as synonymous. They are not. And that's why I don't even like the word product management, Jared, which, you know, when you in the tech world, product marketing, it's, if you come at it from that, even the title, that's what it's going to be. And the best brands emotionally connect because they're thinking brand for all the things that you just talked about as it relates to innovation and differentiation. So I want to make sure that people understand that.
Very good. Yeah. Look, I think there's a role for both, but it's an and. It's not it's not an or. You know, and I think you just
good point.
A contrast of ors, and I think if you really want to have a sustainable winning brand, if you can nail both, they don't have to be a trade-off.
Agreed.
You can be distinctive, you can be differentiated.
That's a good point, Jared.
And if you can go to win on both, but the idea that differentiation is a fool's errand, that's become popular over the last decade, I would say that the data shows that that's just not true.
Man, I'm loving this.
Yeah.
Oh boy, this has been, what a great conversation. D, I think we're at the close here.
Really? Already?
I think we are, man. This is such a, Jared, dude, we knew this. I was chasing you, you know, for a year or two. And I'm glad we finally did this after your book came out, though. I think one of the volleys we had is like, he's like, oh, I'm writing a book. Let's do it after the book. And I think, right, I'm really glad we did it now. So this was fantastic. So Jared, we posit learnings here. And I have so many brand nerds. I'm going to do them as quick as possible, but gosh, there's so much to learn from Jared here. I'm going to start with some Pat Tillman learnings. There's 3 that I picked up. Brand nerds, the first one from Pat, be totally committed to listening in every conversation that you have. It's a great challenge, but think every conversation that you have. Be interested in others and let your actions speak for you, not your words. Those are 3 great learnings from Pat. Next learning, brand nerds, if there's one book you read in your life, not just for professional, read Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People. It will go a long way to serving you in every facet of your life.
Yes.
It's huge. And it might sound corny and everything, but get over that. It's awesome.
Yeah. Ignore the title. The book isn't about the title. The book is so much more.
Great point, Jared. You're right. The title does not really synopsize the book well. So next one, like Jared learned, don't run away from something, run towards something. The other thing, this is a huge one that Jared sort of talked around, but you notice Jared has great people in his life. He talked about his wife. He talked about, obviously, Pat Tillman and others who kept him away from making that bad. He started down the road of one entrepreneurial endeavor, and it could have been a lot worse. You got to have great people around you and be sure you listen to them. Next one, marketers, reassert yourselves. You got to take leadership. And if you can lean into AI and use it to do it, great. The marketing job is to know more about the consumer than they know themselves. Jared, you talked a lot about things in and around that, but let's face it, that's what InfoScout really did, was help marketers really understand the consumer more than they knew themselves. And again, that helps you get some more control and exert leadership from that place. If you know more about the consumer than anybody else does. If it's B2B, know more about your customer. Same concept. And so obviously then the next one, this manifests itself in finding out and leading where the market is going. So DC alluded to, it's not just what the market wants, but what the market needs, right? Mm-hmm. And then the last two, of all the drivers that relate to brand equity, uniqueness and innovation are the ones Jared pointed out in his book, and we got to read more and learn more about that. Brands who create that are the winners. And the real differentiation is how well your brand is doing against the heaviest category buyers. Those are mine. Awesome learnings.
Love it. It's a lot. Drink it up, brand nerds. Drink this up. All right, Jared, you may or may not have listened to our podcast, and at the end, shaking your head. And I don't know how these things are going to go, Jared. I'm telling you right now, I don't know what's going to happen as I'm listening to the human that we've been gifted with as a guest, but I just do my best to listen to not only what is said, but what is meant. And I do the best to try to feel the human that's in front of me. And
which can be scary, Jared, I have to tell you.
Oh, okay. Oh man. I'm gonna try to, in my view, give you what I think is a part of your gift to humanity. So I've got a few sections to hit before I reveal what I think this is about you, Jared. But let's go back to some of the things you said. When you talked about Pat Tillman, you said, when he passed, I didn't even know he was working on his master's degree. And you said, people didn't know this. And then you said, when things are written about Pat, what they didn't quite capture and understand is how driven he was, and his values, and his desire to be just. And you mentioned how he's an active listener. And these things have not been written about broadly, but you knew them. You noticed them, and now you've shared them. With AI, second thing, with AI, there's a surface level understanding of what AI is, but you've peered into this thing, and then you come up with questions like, how do humans think? That's what AI is going to help us figure out. And what's happening with what's inside of our brains regarding the decisions we make. So you're like, okay, AI is up here. You guys are looking at AI, but you're kind of looking at it a little deeper, and you're going, well, do this. Third, InfoScout. So there is this large body of people who are buying things, that's how the economy works. But you're kind of peering into that, and you're going, well, wait a minute now. What if we got down to the receipt? Now we know what you purchased. Why don't you just flick a little picture with that smartphone you have, so we can see what you actually did. Right. And guys, before there was this kind of data from Jared and others, we used to rely on data that was stated. People would say, yes, I consumed X. Yep. And there was always a delta between what they said they consumed, brand nerds, and what they actually consumed. And we called that delta virtual consumption. All right. And so Jared was getting rid of that. He was like, no, I want to get down to the real deal here with InfoScout. And then with Dale Carnegie. So he mentioned how to win friends and influence people. Larry, you brought this up. And as soon as you start talking about it, because you were recommending it to brand nerds, as am I, and Jared interrupts you and he says, ignore the title. He says, ignore the title. Now, let me bring this home. You've written a book, Breakout Brands. You've looked at like thousands of different examples in order to come home to the things that you believe really make a difference. And brand nerds, books are made up of titles and chapters. And this is where we typically focus. But that's not where our brother Jared focuses. Our brother Jared focuses on the footnotes, y'all. The footnotes, the things that are not necessarily right in front of you. And so what I believe is your gift to us, Jared, is I think you are the penultimate brand novelist focused on the footnotes.
Ooh.
Focused on the footnotes. I believe that's your gift to us because we might get seduced or confused by a title. We might think a chapter is phenomenal, and we may never pay attention to the footnotes. You, Jared, are here to remind us, pay attention to the footnotes, y'all. That's what I think you do for us.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. Truly.
Yeah.
Yeah, this has been amazing. Jared, anything you want to posit to the brand nerds before we sign off here?
No, look, this has just been an absolute pleasure, and I hope for those of you listening, you know, there's just one nugget that you can take away and act upon across what we discussed, whether it's reading a book with a terrible title, How to Win Friends and Influence People, or one that hopefully has a better title, but also some okay content, which is Breakout Brands. So thanks for having me on the show. I really appreciate it.
Yes, we're going to make sure that we put it in the show notes. Breakout Brands is something we all have to dive into. For
100.
sure. All right. Well, brand nerds, thank you for listening to Brands, Beats, and Bytes, recorded virtually on Zoom in a production of KZSU, Stanford 90.1 FM radio, and worldwide at kzsu.org. The executive producers are Jeff Shirley, Daryl DC Cobbin, Larry Taman, Haley Cobbin, Jay Cate, and Tom Dioro.
The Podfather.
That's him. And if you are listening to us via podcast, it would be great if you can please rate and review us. Additionally, if you do like the show, please subscribe and share with your friends and colleagues and everyone. We hope you enjoyed this podcast, and we look forward to next time where we will have more insightful and enlightening talk about marketing.
If you wish to contact us, our email is brandsbeatsbytes@kzsu.stanford.edu. Again, that is brands, BRANDS, beats, BEATS, bytes, BY as in yellow, TES @kzsu.stanford.edu.